Right now, as you read this, your TV may be slowly destroying itself, and the settings causing the damage shipped that way right out of the box. Most homeowners never touch them. In today's video, we're covering 13 TV settings that are actively wearing out your screen, your panel, and your electronics. And the fixes cost nothing and take 30 seconds each. Just knowing these can save you from a $500 repair or $1,000 replacement years ahead of schedule. And stick around for number one. It's the one setting that almost nobody gets right, and getting it wrong is quietly burning out your display every single time you watch. Let's get started. Number 13, lower your backlight setting. Here's something that surprises almost every homeowner. When your TV arrived at your house, it was almost certainly set to damage itself. Manufacturers call it vivid mode or dynamic mode, and it pushes the backlight, the light source behind your screen, to 100% intensity. Why do they do it? Because it looks incredible on a bright showroom floor where a TV has to compete with 100 other screens. But in your living room, running that backlight at full blast is like leaving your car engine redlining 24 hours a day. Here's what's actually happening. The backlight in a modern LED television is a series of TLE strips. Like any LED source, they degrade with use. The brighter they burn, the faster they fade. Running at maximum brightness around the clock accelerates that degradation dramatically. We're talking years of lifespan lost just from this one setting. The fix takes about 30 seconds. Go into your TV's picture settings and find backlight or OLED light, depending on your model. For most living rooms, setting it between 40 and 60% gives you a perfectly comfortable picture and a dramatically longer lasting panel. A screen that's pushed to maximum brightness can start showing uneven dimming or color shifts in as little as 4 to 5 years. Dial it back. And the same panel can look great for a decade or more. And by the way, you'll notice your electricity bill drops slightly too. Now, the next tip might surprise you. It's a feature with a friendly sounding name that most people assume is helping their TV, but it's actually doing something very different. Number 12, disable motion smoothing. If you've ever watched a movie on a new TV and thought it looked oddly cheap, like it was shot on a camcorder instead of a cinema camera, you've experienced what's known in the industry as the soap opera effect. The culprit is a feature called motion smoothing, and it goes by different names depending on your brand. Samsung calls it Automotion Plus, LG calls it True Motion, Sony calls it Motion Flow. Whatever your TV calls it, the effect is the same. And so is the problem. What it does is insert artificially generated frames in between the real frames of whatever you're watching. It was designed to reduce motion blur during fast sports action. And for that specific purpose, it has some value. But most TVs ship with it turned on all the time for everything. Your favorite movie, your evening news, your nature documentary, all of it gets processed through this artificial frame interpolation engine continuously. Here's the strain that creates. Your TV's processor is doing real computational work every second to generate those fake frames. That processing generates heat. Heat degrades electronics. Running that processor at elevated temperatures for hours every day, year after year, shortens the life of the internal components. A repair technician in Atlanta told me he sees more smart TV processing board failures in sets that run heavy post-processing features than in sets that don't. And the repair bill for a main board runs $300 to $500 on a mid-range television. The fix is in your picture settings under motion or picture options. Disable motion smoothing entirely or set it to its lowest value. Your movies will look the way the director intended, and your TV will work less hard every single hour you watch. But that was the obvious tip. What's coming up next is the one that even people who consider themselves tech-savvy almost always get wrong. Number 11. Configure your ambient light sensor correctly. Most modern televisions have a small sensor, usually a tiny dot near the bottom edge of the frame, that detects the light level in the room and adjusts the screen brightness accordingly. It sounds like a good idea. In theory, it is. When it works correct, it turns the backlight down in a dark room and up in a bright one. That's less strain on the panel, less strain on your eyes, and lower electricity use. The problem is that millions of televisions have this sensor either accidentally disabled during setup or worse, set to a mode that makes it actively harmful. When the ambient light sensor is turned off and the TV is sitting in dynamic or standard mode, it blasts at full brightness. Whether you're watching at noon or midnight, the panel sees no reason to reduce output. But there's another failure mode that's less obvious. A mode some manufacturers call auto power saving or energy saving that cycles the backlight up and down rapidly in response to changes in the content on screen rather than the actual light in the room. We'll come back to exactly why that mode is the most damaging of all. It's what number 1 is all about. For now, go into your settings and find ambient light detection, eco sensor, or automatic brightness limiting. Turn it on if it's off, and set it to detect room light, not content brightness. A correctly configured ambient sensor can reduce your panel's average brightness load by 30 to 40% over the course of a day. That's real lifespan being protected on an OLED television, especially where every pixel generates its own light. That reduction matters enormously. Replacing an OLED panel runs $800 to $1,500. The correct sensor setting costs you nothing. That was important. But the next tip is one that most technicians won't tell you about because fixing the damage it causes is a significant part of their business. Number 10, never leave a static image on screen. A retired school teacher in Oregon contacted an electronics repair shop because her 2-year-old OLED television had a ghost. A faint, permanent outline of a news channel's logo burned into the lower right corner of her screen. She watched the news every morning for about 2 hours, always on the same channel. The logo sat in the same spot every single day. After 18 months, it was there permanently. The repair shop told her it couldn't be fixed. The panel was gone. What happened to her is called burn it, and it's the most permanent, most expensive damage a television can suffer. It happens when the same image, a channel logo, a scoreboard, a paused video game, a frozen streaming menu sits on your screen in the same spot for extended period. On OLED televisions, which now make up a large share of premium sets, each pixel generates its own light. When certain pixels are driven harder than their neighbors for long periods, they age faster, creating a permanent brightness difference you can see even when watching something else. The fix is behavioral, but it's simple. Never pause on a bright static image for more than a few minutes. If you're watching news or sports, use your TV's built-in screensaver or pixel shift setting. Most modern TVs have one that subtly moves the image every few minutes to distribute the load. If you need to step away, turn the screen off rather than pausing. These two habits, enabling pixel shift and turning off instead of pausing, cost you nothing and prevent a repair that quite literally can't be done. Now be honest with yourself. When was the last time you checked what picture mode your TV defaults to when you turn it on? Because that answer matters a lot for the next tip. Number 9. Switch out a vivid or standard picture mode. Picture modes are the fastest, easiest setting change you can make, and most TVs are sitting in the wrong one right now. When you first turn on a television, it defaults to either vivid, dynamic, or standard mode. These names sound reasonable, but what they actually represent is a collection of pushed settings: boosted backlight, high contrast, oversaturated color, and aggressive sharpness, all tuned for maximum showroom impact, not real-world home use. Running in these modes is like driving your car with the accelerator floored. Everything works harder than it needs to. The backlight runs hotter. The processor does more work. The panel outputs more light than your room requires. It's not just wear and tear, it's also genuinely worse for your eyes in a dim room. Here's what you do. Navigate to your picture settings and change the mode to Movie Cinema Filmmaker mode or Calibrated. The name varies by brand, but every major TV maker includes a version of this setting. These modes are tuned to international broadcast standards. They're dimmer, yes, but that's appropriate for a home living room. Your eyes will adjust in about 60 seconds, and you'll quickly wonder why you ever watched in the harsh, oversaturated, vivid mode. If you're finding these tips useful, hit that subscribe NextGen Picks. We cover practical home technology and appliance topics every week, and you won't want to miss the next one. A technician who services televisions for a living once told me that the single thing he could do to cut his own repair business in half would be to tell every customer to switch their TV out of vivid mode on day one. That says everything. And it gets even more specific with the next tip, which targets a single number on your settings menu that most people assume should be as high as possible. Number 8, turn down the contrast setting. Contrast is one of those settings where more feels like better. A higher contrast means brighter whites and deeper blacks, right? So, crank it up. That's what most people instinctively do. Or leave at the factory default, which is already pushed too high. On most televisions, the factory contrast setting lands between 80 and 90 out of 100. What that means in practice is that your brightest pixels, the highlights in a sunlit sky, a white shirt, a bright lamp in the frame, are being driven at near maximum intensity every time those elements appear on screen. On an LED television, those peak brightness moments stress the backlight. On an OLED, they age individual pixels faster than their neighbors. Either way, running contrast at factory default accelerates uneven wear across the panel. You may start to notice this as a dim area in the upper center of the screen, which is where bright content most commonly appears. After 4 or 5 years of heavy use, drop your contrast setting to between 60 and 70. In a typical living room with normal, ambient light, you will not see a meaningful difference in how the image looks. The human eye adapts. What you will do is reduce the strain on your panel's brightest output levels significantly. A professional TV calibrator, someone who tunes displays for film studios and home theaters, rarely sets contrast above 65 for home use. Their job is to make the TV look as good as possible while protecting the panel's long-term performance. That's exactly what this 1-minute adjustment does for you. We're more than halfway through, and I'll tell you honestly, the tips from here to the end are the ones that catch most homeowners completely off guard. Number 7, check whether your TV is still in store mode. This one shocks people every time. Significant number of televisions, particularly those bought at big box electronics stores, warehouse clubs, or purchased as floor models, arrive in homes still set to store mode, also called demo mode or retail mode. Store mode is designed for a retail floor. It maxes out brightness, cranks contrast, loops demo content, and keeps the display running at maximum output to attract shoppers from across a store. It was never meant to run in your living room. If your TV arrives set to store mode, it has potentially been running at maximum display output since the day you set it up. Some homeowners have had their sets in this mode for years without knowing. The screen is brighter than normal. The colors are oversaturated. The panel is aging at an accelerated rate every single hour it runs. Checking for this takes 1 minute. Go to your TV's main settings menu and look for a section called General, System, or Support. Inside, look for a setting called Usage Mode, Home Mode, or Location. If it says anything related to store, retail, or demo, change it to home immediately. Your picture will look dramatically different, dimmer, more natural, less aggressive. That's not a step backward. That's what your panel was designed to look like for the next 15 years. A TV calibration service charges $150 to $300 to adjust a set that's been in store mode long term. This check costs nothing, and if that setting surprised you, the next one is even more hidden. It involves a feature you've probably never thought to look at. Number 6, disable always on voice assistant listening. Smart TVs today come loaded with features, and one of the most common is a built-in voice assistant, Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, or the manufacturer's own system. The convenience is real. You speak, the TV responds. But there's a mode buried in nearly every smart TV's settings that most owners never think to check. Always listening or voice wake mode. When this is enabled, your TV's microphone is live whenever the TV is powered on. And in many cases, even when it appears to be in standby, the TV's processor is partially awake, waiting for a wake word. That means the processor is generating heat. The internal fans or passive cooling system are working. Components are under low-level electrical load around the clock. This might sound minor, but consider the math. If you leave your TV in standby for 14 to 16 hours a day, which is typical, and the processor is actively running for all of it, that's thousands of hours per year of unnecessary heat generation inside an enclosed electronic device. Heat is the enemy of all electronics. Capacitors fail, solder joints crack, processors degrade, it's slow, it's invisible, and it absolutely shortens the life of the main board. Find the voice settings in your smart TV menu. Look for voice recognition activation, always ready, or hands-free mode, depending on your brand. Disable it. You can still use the voice assistant by pressing the microphone button on your remote. You just won't have it listening passively at all times. Mainboard failures on smart TVs run $300 to $600 in parts and labor. This setting costs you nothing to change and removes a constant, unnecessary source of internal heat. And here's something that connects to that. There's another background process running on your TV right now that you've almost certainly never considered. It's coming up in just a moment. Number 5, turn off background app refresh. If your television is connected to the internet, and most are, it has apps. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, YouTube, and whatever else you've installed. Each of those apps by default is doing something you probably didn't authorize, refreshing its data feed in the background while you watch something else. They're checking for new content, updating recommendations, syncing playback history, and downloading interface updates. All of this happens silently while your TV runs. The processor isn't idle during this. It's doing real work, connecting to servers, processing data, writing to storage. That creates a background heat load that compounds with everything else your TV is already doing. Over time, sustained elevated temperatures inside the TV housing degrade every component they touch. The fix is in your smart TV's app settings or in your individual app's own settings. Look for auto-update apps, background data, or app refresh. Terminology varies by platform. Disabling background refresh means apps update when you open them, not all the time while you're watching. Your experience won't suffer, but the internal temperature of your TV will drop and your electronics will thank you over the long run. If you've made it this far, you already know more about protecting your television than 90% of homeowners. And what's coming in the next few tips is where it really gets interesting, because we're getting into the settings that even most TV technicians don't mention during a standard service call. Number 4, fix your HDMI settings. Here's a scenario that plays out in millions of homes every night. You watch television, turn it off, and go to bed. At 2 in the morning, your cable box or streaming device reboots automatically. Standard maintenance for many devices. And because of a feature called HDMI CEC, your television turns itself on in a completely dark room and sits there glowing until someone wakes up and notices. HDMCEC is a protocol that allows connected devices to communicate with your television over the HD key cable. It's genuinely useful for things like letting your TV remote control the volume on a soundbar, but its default behavior, allowing any connected device to wake or control your TV, creates a serious problem. Devices reboot, streaming sticks update overnight, game consoles run maintenance tasks. Every one of these events can trigger your television to power on without your knowledge. The result is hidden operating hours your panel is accumulating while you sleep. An OLED that burns 4 unexpected hours a night, 6 nights a week, logs over 200 extra operating hours per year. That's the equivalent of another full year of normal use every year, added silently to your panel's total wear count. Go into your TV settings and find Titan's HDMI CE. It may be listed as any Plus on Samsung, Simpink on LG, or Bravia Sync on Sony. You don't have to disable it entirely. Just look for a sub-option called Auto Power On or Device Auto Power Link and turn that specific function off. Your TV will no longer wake itself up at night, and the rest of HDMI functionality stays intact. Keeping the panel off when you're asleep is the most effortless thing you can do for its long-term health. You're doing well, and we're heading into the final 3 tips now. These are the ones that make the biggest difference. Number 3, set your sharpness to 0. This is one of those tips that feels counterintuitive until you understand what sharpness actually does on a television. Most people assume that a higher sharpness setting adds detail to the image. It doesn't. Zero. Real detail exists in your content that a sharpness boost can reveal. The resolution is fixed. What the sharpness control actually does is apply an edge enhancement filter that draws artificial outlines around every object in the frame. You can see this yourself on any television. Set sharpness very high and look at a person's face or a building in the background. You'll see a faint bright halo around the edges. That's the filter creating artificial contrast where there wasn't any. It doesn't look real because it isn't. Filmmakers and broadcast engineers set their content to be displayed with a sharpness setting of 0. When you push sharpness up, you're overriding what the content was meant to look like. Here's the problem beyond picture quality. That edge enhancement filter is running on your processor every second, analyzing every pixel in every frame, and drawing those artificial outlines in real time. It's unnecessary computational work. It generates heat on a television that runs 4 to 6 hours a day. That adds up to thousands of hours of avoidable processing load per year. The fix is the easiest one on this list. Open your picture settings, find sharpness, and set it to 0. If 0 feels too soft to you at first, it won't after a couple of days. Try setting it to 5. Professional TV calibrators universally set sharpness at 0 for home use. This is the rare case where the correct setting and the easiest setting are the same thing. Number 2, use the right picture mode at night. Here is a situation that happens in millions of homes every single evening. The sun goes down, the lights are turned off or dimmed, and the television keeps running in the same standard or vivid picture mode it was using at noon. The room is dark. The TV is still at full daytime output. It's like turning on a spotlight in a dark bedroom and wondering why your eyes hurt. What's happening to the panel is just as significant as what's happening to your eyes. At night, in a darkened room, your TV doesn't need to output anywhere near its daytime brightness to deliver a comfortable picture. But if the picture mode is set to standard or vivid, the backlight is still pushing at 70, 80, or 100%. Every hour of unnecessary high brightness output is wear on the panel that didn't need to happen. The fix is a simple evening habit. When the room gets dark, switch your picture mode to cinema, movie, or filmmaker mode. If your TV has an ISF night or expert dark room mode, that's even better. These modes reduce backlight to a level appropriate for low ambient light, adjust color temperature to be easier on the eyes, and let the panel coast rather than strain. A television that runs in cinema mode in the evening instead of standard mode is running its panel at significantly lower average brightness over its lifetime. And lower average brightness means longer panel life. No cost, no installation, just a 30-second habit every evening that protects an appliance you use every single day. And that brings us to number 1. If you walk away from this video with only one thing, this is the one, because it's the setting that almost everybody either has wrong or has never thought to check. Number 1, turn off auto brightness the right way. Nearly every television sold in the last 10 years includes some version of an energy-saving or power-saving mode. On Samsung, it's called EO Solution. On LG, it's energy-saving. On Sony, it's power-saving. The name varies, but the promise is always the same. Your TV will intelligently manage its brightness to save power and reduce wear. That sounds exactly like what you want. The problem is that most of these modes don't work the way homeowners assume they do. And in their default configuration, they can actively damage your panel. Here's what's actually happening. Most energy-saving modes on major television brands are set by default to a mode called Auto or Automatic. In this mode, the TV doesn't measure the light in your room. It measures the brightness of the content on screen. When a bright scene appears, a daytime exterior shot, a white background, a brightly lit scene, the TV ramps the backlight up to compensate. When a dark scene appears, it pulls the backlight back down. The result is that the backlight is constantly cycling up, down, sometimes within the same minute, depending on what you're watching. On OLED televisions especially, this rapid brightness cycling creates uneven stress across the panel. Certain brightness levels are hit repeatedly and intensely, while others are barely used. Over time, this creates differential aging. areas of the panel that have been pushed harder look slightly different from areas that haven't. It's a form of gradual, irreversible damage, and it develops slowly enough that most homeowners don't notice it until it's significant. Here's the correct way to configure this setting. Go into your TV's energy or power settings. Find the auto brightness or energy saving control. Do not turn it off entirely. A completely disabled setting often defaults the TV to maximum output, which we already know is harmful. Instead, set it to a fixed, moderate level. On most TVs, this is labeled low, medium, or a specific number like 30 to 50. A fixed moderate brightness means the panel outputs a consistent, reasonable level without cycling. No peaks, no valleys, just steady, sustainable output. This one setting, configured correctly, removes the most common source of uneven panel aging that repair technicians see in televisions over 5 years old. The fix costs nothing, takes 90 seconds, and it's the reason some televisions look as good at year 10 as they did on day 1, while others show dullness, uneven brightness, or color shifts by year 5. That is the single most important setting in your television. And now you know it. That's 13 settings that could be quietly aging your TV right now. And every fix costs nothing. There's a video on your screen right now covering the biggest mistakes homeowners make when setting up a new television. Click it now. I'll see you there.